Let's talk some toys in here.
Hey, what's up everyone? Today is the Man-Child. Alright, so today I'm going to go over the MOTU Origins Lady Slither figures, part of the Mattel Creations exclusive sale. Yeah, sale just went off a few days ago, and here she is on my doorstep already. I think that's great, and I hope that Mattel Creations, with their exclusive figures, with the MOTU Origins, going forward, always has these figures in stock, and it seems that way with the last couple of sales. Soon as they went off like a Fangor, next thing people were getting them within a week or two later. I think that's great. But yeah, here she is, and it's cool to have another female snake in the line. What's unique with her, of course, she has that tail, which as soon as I pull the slipcover off, we'll take a look at that. But look at this box you get, this slipcover box with this big symbol. That's just awesome. And here's a quick look at the back of the box. Got this awesome looking snake. Of course, here's the bio. And here's a closer look at Lady Slither's bio. You want to pause and read that? So once again, moving back to the front of the box, it's obviously a large slipcover. And what's cool too with this emblem or medallion, it's actually like a 3D print, so it's coming out. And I think it's also cool that the box is like, it has scales all over it. Reminds me of a big snake skin or something. So of course with the slipcover, it's just going to slide right off like that. And here we go. Here's Lady Slither in her box set. I think it's neat too that Mattel used the box for this particular figure and all accessories. I wasn't sure how they're going to go about that originally. Now, I heard when she was coming around that she was going to have a tail. I think that was the first thing shown, but a lot of people didn't know if she was going to have legs as well. Now, going back to the concept figure that went all the way back to concept designs in the vintage days, but more to the classics, the figure was supposed to have both a tail and legs. I'm glad the Origins did that for this figure. And going back to this box, kind of reminds me of the same box or size that came out with the Skeleton Warriors 2-pack. So it looks like they just use the same box, but with different art. So once again, it's awesome to utilize that. She has that skirt adapter piece. I was also wondering how they're going to do that, because the female waist has a different peg. At least if I remember with Teal and Evelyn. But this allows her upper torso to plug onto this tail, and then remove it. It looks like it has a regular peg for the males, which we'll experiment and try some different customs with that as well. But such a cool setup just to see a Lady Slither and have her in hand. And moving in, taking a closer look at that awesome Origins art. Origins always has some of the coolest art I've ever seen, but here's our Lady Slither, looking good. Now, I like how in this piece of art, she has an open mouth with the fangs showing. I kind of wish the figure would have had that, It just looks more menacing, or another head, but we didn't get that. Anyway, we have some more concept Snake Men figures over here that I have no doubt Origins at some point. I'm going to put these in a line. Now, once again, it goes back to original vintage concept and stuff, going back to the classics that never went in the classics line. And they're basically just a lot of retooled parts, which we have all the Snake Men out now, so it's kind of a no-brainer. But I believe this figure was called Viper. This guy in the background here was Reptiliax, I want to say. We have Stretch Neck. And then going to the left-hand side, of course, we have Fangor. Now, he was made in the classics and also just came out in the Origins. And then over here to the far left, we have the, I think that was the Snake Layer playset, which I believe is the up and runner for the Attorney of Choice fan vote crowdfunding project, to where, a lot of fans, you went on Mattel Creations, or I don't know if it was on Instagram or something. I know I voted, but I know this was the top choice. I think the next one was Attack Track, and I want to say the Fright Zone. But I can totally see this coming as a crowdfunding project like Attorney was, and that would be awesome. And now spinning the box around, taking a look at that incredible art once again on the back. So as far as our characters, we have Lady Slither, of course, sitting in some type of snake throne. Be cool to see something like that. She has a closed mouth now, going back to the figure. Off to the left-hand side, we have, I believe this concept snake figure was called the High Priest. So once again, I could totally see him coming down the road in the Origins lines, because a bunch of retooled parts, so maybe the head and that staff. And then off to the right-hand side here, that looks like, I want to say Viper again, but with the lower serpent half that Lady Slither now comes with. So later on in the review, now I have the lower, part to Lady Slither, and this is just basically a Cobra Khan, Camel Khan upper half. I try to recreate this figure, but of course in the green color. And being that both of these parts are out now, I can totally see this particular figure character coming into the Origins, but in this red color scheme as it's shown on the back of the box. And here's another quick piece of interesting art on the left-hand side of the box, looking in from the window. You got that little minion that came with Fangor in the classics, but he didn't come with the Fangor in the Origins, which, yeah, I was a little disappointed at that, but that's what that little creature's from. Okay, and here's a quick look at Lady Slither and all accessories out of box, what you get. So, before we go over Lady Slither and all accessories, of course, she comes with her own unique comic, like all the exclusive figures seem to now. So it's called Sword of the Serpent, and okay, we got our Lady Slither on the front, and okay, there's King Hiss. I was wondering where he fits in all this. I looked over it briefly. I'll read it later on, but you want to try to pause and read it if you can. Check out all the stuff going on, but yeah, I love all the different Snakeman variants or the concept figures, characters in this comic. That's awesome. I can totally see these coming to Origins. I'll just bring it in close, pause and read it if you didn't get yours yet, or give you a head start before you open up your Lady Slither figure. I love the art in these too. It's so incredible. That so what's she doing here? It cuts off King Hiss's head, or that his fake head, and then the Serpent slithers out. Okay, guess you're not liking Hiss. Look at that. What is that? The Abyssal Galactic Constructor. Cosmic Snake. Okay, pretty neat. And there's that Cosmic, I think that was Cosmic He-Man. I think he was showing, I think it was Fangor's comic. I'd love to see a variant of a He-Man like that in the Origins, like translucent with those colors. That'd be neat. And taking a closer look at Lady Slither out of the package with her setup with the legs and all that good stuff. Yeah, awesome head sculpt. Really beautiful. Just the way they sculpted and painted the eyes in there, the snake eyes. Yeah, closed mouth expression. Once again, I really wish it was open or had another variant head with the fangs, but okay. Cool, you know, got the headdress going there. Love the hair in the back. Now, at first I didn't know. I was like, I'm going to bring in, hold on, excuse me. I'm going to bring in Snake Teela for a minute. I'm like, did they just reuse the Snake Teela's head, but just change the eyes and the eyebrows and all that stuff? You couldn't tell the difference. Let me mix them around this way. But, no, they actually look a little different. Her chin looks a little more pointier, and something with the sculpting in the eyes to me does look a little different. I don't know. Maybe it's could be the same head, but really cool. So yeah, we talked about the headdress, the hair though. I love it. The sculpting in it, so it's pretty flexible. And as far as the head articulation with this head, so we can go left to right and down about that far and back, and it does. Okay, it's getting hindered by this K piece, which is its own piece, does move, and we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, absolutely love the head sculpt in its figure. So moving down to that neck piece and cape, as I said, the cape is just all one piece. Yeah, it's just sculpted in a brightish purple color. Now let's pop the head off for a second. Okay, so there's the ball peg in the head, and then the cape's going to come off like that. And here's a closer look at the cape off the body. Right, so once again, so it's flexible. It's got some cool sculpted creases in here. It's yeah, it's shinier on the outside than the inside, or just more of a flat. And then it's got that neck piece. And here's a quick look with her head back on, cape off. If you didn't want to use it, we'll take a look at that. So with the cape off for the moment, moving down, of course, yeah, she's just this bright, palish green color now. Once again, bringing in Snake Teela. It looks very close, but sort of different. Hers is Snake Teela's is a brighter color, and I want to say Lady Slither is a little more flat, but they are very close. But yeah, so she has, of course, her, chest armor piece there. Sculpted really well, part of the body, obviously. Like the little snake symbol in the middle there. You got fangs on each side, if you can see that. As far as the arms now, articulation, everything typical with the Origins. We can go up, down, move forward, back. She has like a armored, sort of a wrist bracer, an arm bracer up top. It's all part of the sculpt. It's just painted in red colors, you can see. And of course, we know the elbow. With this figure can go in and out like that, can spin. And then she has these cool wrist bracers on both sides. Are very identical on the left and right. And of course, they're part of the sculpt as well. And Lady Slither also comes with two semi-weapon gripping hands, I call them. Okay, and they can spin. They're on hinge joints. Can both go in and out. And yeah, both arms are exactly the same as far as articulation, everything on them. So moving down to the waist, we know she comes apart at the waist. She has a MOTU style belt and cloth here. It's kind of funny how the females in the Origins, they look so short, at the torso there. But I guess they go all the way down to the belt. Now as far as okay, so there's the leg. Here's the back. You want to see details in the back of everything, right? Pull the hair out of the way. Check that out. There's the back of her chest armor there. And as far as the legs, so we know she can go all the way out with a split. She can kick forward. go back, bend at the knee, can spin at the knee. And then she has like just typical Tila style boots. And they can spin. Of course, they can come off and then the foot and go up, down, rock side to side. So moving on with Lady Slither's accessories. Of course, it comes with a typical snake staff. It's just molded in a flat yellow goldish color. And it's the same exact staff as the other Tilas came with, or the snake Tila, which is in green. There's a comparison between the two. Exactly identical aside the color. So for the next accessory, you also get what they're calling the Sword of the Serpent, according to the comic book. And this is what she cut King Hiss's fake head off with. So you do get that. It's just the same thing molded in the flat yellowish gold color. And then you get this skirt adapter piece. So here's the primary plug that fits obviously the female torso on top of it. And this is where a male plug would plug in, or that snake piece. So you get that. It's just molded in a flat red color, and it's pretty solid. And then for the last and most important accessory, you get this Serpent's tail. That is really cool to have and unique in the Origins line. I mean, this, again, we create all kinds of snake warriors with it, and it's something always cool just seeing a giant snake tail on a figure, you know, along with tentacles and stuff. But yeah, just awesome. So yeah, really solid piece. Do have a light green plating, you know, shading on the plates going down to the body all the way, and here's the bottom, right? Curls up to the tail. And it's yeah, painted in just a pine green or darkish green color, I want to say, under my light. Well, yeah, it's kind of hard to tell under my light, but it's a decent green color, and it go well with a lot of greenish or yellow like figures, or any of them really. But I love that accessory. So it has the male peg up top for this adapter. I'm going to put that on soon, or one of the male torsos, which of course we'll try. As far as your articulation now, I mean, yeah, awesome articulation. So we got one, articulates here, it's 2, down here 3. Okay, so it has 3 points articulation in the tail piece, which obviously you can spin all over. And it seems like to balance it, the best way is to sit it on the tail like this. You gotta like hold it back that way. Now it might, of course, going to change once we put one of the figures on it, but that seems to be the best way to balance that. Alright, so let's set our Lady Slither up with the Serpent's tail. So of course we're going to put this armored skirt on. It's going to snap on like that, and then front's the pointy part, or can articulate, move around, but it should look something like that. And now moving back to Lady Slither, of course we'll put the cape on, so we're just going to snap the waist in half, and then take her upper half and snap it into this adapter. And now here's a look at Lady Slither with her serpent tail on. That's incredible. Such a cool looking piece. Just what we needed in the Origins line. I hope we get something like this in the Masterverse too. But we already know about the articulation, but we can turn her, and it seems like as long as you hold it in this position, kind of straight up, it seems to hold okay. All right, that balancing it will fall that way, but for the most part, she can, you know, turning her, looking different directions, works really cool. You could turn the skirt piece, and of course, we know we have all this different articulation. We could spin it around, make her look backwards if we want, and see if that holds. Look at that. So yeah, you got to mess around with it, but really cool. Okay, and here's a quick look with the snake staff and serpent sword in hand. Of course, we have the lower serpent tail on. Moving on to a little comparisons and part swapping. I want to bring in the Serpent King Hiss all set up with the Serpent Lady Slither. Check those two out together, because of course, everybody likes King Hiss, and now we have our Lady Slither. So moving on to part swapping or customs, and of course, the most important part, a lot of us have been waiting for, is his tail. Now this is her legs. There ain't much we're going to do with that. Let's, as far as the female setup, let's try the snake tail upper half on this and see what that looks like. And here's a look with the snake tail setup with the lower serpent half. Looks really cool. The skin works well with that color of the tail. And, you know, of course, we know she can articulate and everything else. And here's a quick look with snake tail's lower legs on Lady Slither's upper half. So it could work. You know, the skin tones are slightly different. These are brighter, as I said. But it doesn't look bad. Just something different with the lower skirt piece, match and everything. You want to mix it around. Okay, so moving back to this articulated serpent tail by itself. I obviously took that skirt adapter off. And yeah, the snake tail looked really good on it. Obviously, she's the only other snake female figure we have out that's even green will match this. Let's try some of the male snake figures on this and see what it looks like. So first up, let's bring in Camo Khan. Going back to that art with that, I think it was the Viper figure, the red one I showed with that finned hood, or whoever that character was. So it's basically these two parts put together. All right, and here we go. And there's that figure all made up, but in green. Looks really cool. You know, articulates well. Colors, even though they're a little different, they are close though. They do match as well. The blue shades and stuff. So you mix things around. It get a lot of different colors and matches tail. But I feel like in order to put the male upper bucks on this tail, it needs a transition piece like a belt to hide it, just like as a skirt did for the females, you know, even though it was a peg to peg, had this armor piece and you didn't see this weird gap. So I actually have a loincloth and belt off a 2000X Rattler figure that the figure was broken, I took off, and I used his armor too on another Origins, my Rattler actually. But I wonder how this works. All right, it even has a Snake Man symbol, and look at that. It fits right over. Okay, and it's kind of flexible. Snap this in place. Now look at that. That looks so much better for a transition piece, or just to have a loincloth and belt for these Origins figures and adapt this tailpiece. Here's another look at Camel Connell setup with that. Yeah, that's the way to go. Definitely needs a transition piece or belt you can find or customize something. I even modified just a little bit. It used to hang lower, but you had one of these, you wanted to cut it short or even just cut around, just use the belt piece. That would be fine too. But that looks so cool on a figure, much better. And next I'll just bring the Cobra Khan in with his gun. It was a snake shield. His colors are a little bit darker than Camel Khan's in his typical head, so let's put that on that snake serpent tail and see what that looks like. And here's a look with that set up now without that belt. Pretty cool. Now here's a look with my belt setup. So for the next customer setup, of course I brought in Fangor because of his green colors, and they match really well with that lower serpent tail. Take a look at that. Of course I kept my belt on. Looks much better. Articulates. And then this will be a look with the two pieces together without some type of belt or something to hide it. Yeah, it just doesn't look right to me. So the next male snake figure I'm going to bring in is Gorgon from the Diabolical Snake Men. You know, it was neat to have these as army builders. They didn't come with any weapons, so I just used one of the Skeleton Warriors, you know, the extra green weapons, which look cool. So I'm going to break him in half. And the other thing I did with this Gorgon, too, is that they both, him and the Poison Master, came with Rattler heads, obviously. Really bad, you know, they just looked up, you couldn't move them, I mean, side left to right, but what I wound up doing, for anybody curious, is I modified mine. So I took a Dremel, I made a little cut in the front of the neck so the peg can go all the way forward, and I even took this, if you can see that piece out of the neck. So it plugs on fine. Now look at that, he can look all the way down or forward instead of just staring up, and articulation's good, and even when you're all the way down, don't look bad in the back. So that's kind of how I modified my Gorgon figure. But let's put this on the Serpent tail and see what that looks like. And now here's Gorgon, obviously with the Serpent tail set up and out my belt. Take a look at that. Yeah, you know, the darker green colors can mix with those colors in the tail. It can mix anything. Now here's a look with my belt piece back on. It's, yeah, once again, to me, it's such a better transition of just between the different colors with the snake eye and that lower piece, and it just hides everything. So next I took the Origins Squeeze and threw it on that lower half. That looks really creepy with the long arms. And even with the brighter colors, yeah, it works pretty cool with that tail. Once again, I think because of some type of belt to hide the transition, but take a look at that. It's really neat. So next I wanted to bring in the Origins Whiplash just because of his colors. They work really great with this lower half. And yeah, another freak tail on a tail. And take a look at that. That's, yeah, creepy looking. All right, so next I brought in the Serpent style King Hiss setup without any armor on. I was always curious what he would look like with a tail. So it would be neat if we had one of these tails in yellow, or you wanted to paint one, but the green might work. But here we go again, the problem. See that transition? Now yellow can work really well with green, but these two snap together like that without a belt, it just, yeah, it doesn't work for me. And now here's a look with that Rattler belt on. Yeah, much better in my opinion. Just helps that transition, articulates well, helps blend that yellow upper piece with this lower tail, and just looks like, you know, he originally had all that skin, it broke off or something. Pretty cool. And for fun, or just a little curiosity on my end, or anybody who has this particular figure, or upper half. So this is the Serpent King Hiss from the Classics line. Just such an awesome piece. And now I have this lower Serpent tail piece, which Classics never did. And of course this belt. I want to put these two together and see what that looks like. And there you go. So this tail even works great for the Classics upper part of that Serpent King Hiss figure. And again, if you had some type of belt or transition, just really helps blend it all in. Awesome. And now moving back to our Origins King Hiss, the King of Kings with all that disguise armored set on the body with all the Serpent stuff taken off and the lower Serpent belt. Take a look at that. And now here's a look with my belt set up with the two transitions. Okay, and for one last custom setup with this snake tail, and obviously we have Rattler. He's in a red color like that Viper figure was, so it'd be cool to get a tail on like that, and that would look really cool in Rattler. You get one of these and paint it. Here's that armored that also came off that 2000X Rattler figure, right? And this was the lower piece. Now, obviously, snap this guy, see what it looks like. So this is what it would look like without that skirt piece. So Rattler's another interesting setup. I mean, of course, the color's off. Because he has a tail with a tail, you know, the extended neck. So it's kind of creepy. And I like this armor to have on. But once again, let me try that belt piece on him. Okay, and here you go. Once again, really hides that transition. And somehow it can help blend the red colors or whatever snake figure you're using. It's not green with the lower green half if you wanted to. Or you can always paint this. You had another one. Now, bringing in Rattler for a second, I was hoping... So here's the lower half. Now you see that he has a belt, okay? So obviously the belt I'm using came from the 2000X figure. Not everybody has one of those. You're going to sacrifice one if you did. So I was trying to look for a simpler solution for people who want to use the belt idea. So the Rattler one on the Origins, it is glued a little bit, but it has a peg. If you can see that. But it does come off. It is meant to come off, and it can slide and snap right back on. And you wouldn't even know it. But let's try this on that lower snake half for some type of a belt to hide that transition. See if we can make this work. So if this was able just to go down on this piece, it would be perfect. You know, work, I think, really well to hide that gap. But the problem is, once again, see this Rattler belt has these pegs in here. Now, if you took a razor knife, you had a spare one, and you eliminated these peg pieces, even though you might have to cut these flat pieces out too, I know it would work really fine. You might not even have to cut these, just the pegs. And I tried stretching this over. I really can't get it to stretch. Maybe you can heat it up, and it will keep popping up. But if you had one of these belts, and you're able to do that, I think that would work well. Just enough to slide. You'd slide up the figure's waist and hide that, and now you would have a belt. So bringing in a green figure like Gorgon again, so you couldn't, even if you cut some of these out, you'd have a hard time. I don't know if it would fit around this body. It might be able to if you stretch it. Probably better off being on this lower end. But let me see. Yeah, it's a tough call. You'd really have to modify this belt. But if you could, depending on the figure, and the Gorgon and the Camel Con are pretty wide. But again, that's what we're trying to make, going back to that art of that Viper figure. And you had basically a belt like this. Didn't have a loincloth. It would kind of, it might work. It's I don't know, kind of risky. But if you could, if you want to modify it, you know, it looks something like that. If you could just... I don't know if I can get this on this peg. There's a way, you know, I think you can modify it. It looks something like that, and that would be a great transition piece and belt for one of these figures. Alright, and that's pretty much my review for the new MOTU Universe Origins Lady Slither figure. Yeah, she's incredible. I really like having her. It's so cool to finally have a MOTU Origins Snake figure, whether it's female or male, with this lower end. You've seen all the different combinations I tried. Again, I think it works better for, of course, you know, characters that have the green upper body or even yellow. It's cool that she came with this skirt transition piece, and that's what you really needed to hide everything, and it blends in well. And now it's also awesome that this snake piece can fit the males, as of course we already went through. But once again, I know I'm showing this over and over, and this is just one example of some type of belt or loincloth that was removable. Again, you can cut this and just make it its own belt, or maybe a Masterverse belt, like one of those figures. They can come off, and you can just cut, make a belt. Something like that if you want to sacrifice one. That's really what the male figures needs to hide a transition. Just because it just looks so bare in the waist, or especially if you're using other figures with different colors to go from the top to this bottom piece. So I wish Mattel would have threw something in like that for the male figures, because that's basically what they give for the female figure. But even though this was designed for also an adapter piece, I guess, you know, where the male you don't really need that. Also awesome that you get the lower legs. That's cool. They didn't have to do that, but going back to the concept art, or what the classics was going to do, they gave us those legs. Get a snake staff, which, you know, we've seen many times. They need another one. That sword's cool, and the comic. So, yeah, it's great, you know, that Mattel finally put this figure out. Everybody else that one of Mattel Creations got one or shipping now, and hopefully you get them soon. So I appreciate everybody watching, and until next time, take care.